Facing a heartbreaking choice, I refused to let my husband give up one of our twin daughters for adoption to pursue his business dreams. Instead, I set bold conditions, leading to an unexpected turn to divorce. Hey everyone, I need some advice. I'm 28 years old and have been married to my husband 30 for just 10 months. We dated for a year before tying the knot. We actually knew each other from high school, but reconnected online a year ago. Things were great in the beginning. He was charming and sweet. I fell for him hard. About a year into our relationship, I accidentally became pregnant. Initially, I wanted to terminate the pregnancy because I didn't feel ready for a baby. However, he convinced me to keep it, promising to take care of everything. Relieved, I agreed and we moved in together. 3 months later, he proposed and I said yes. We got married quickly after that in a small ceremony. Everything was going well until we found out we were having twins. At 6 months, he started to distance himself. I tried not to let it bother me at first, hoping I had made the right decision, but as my due date approached, the distance between my husband and me grew. I confronted him multiple times, but he reassured me, attributing his behavior to nerves about the babies. Despite my worries, I held on to his words. About a month and a half ago, I gave birth to our beautiful twin daughters. I was overjoyed, but my husband's happiness seemed short-lived. He reverted to his distant self, barely acknowledging me or the babies. Then, a week ago, he dropped a bombshell. He wanted to give one of our daughters up for adoption to save money for the future. He explained that he wanted to save up for his future business endeavors, but with twins, he felt it would be financially challenging. He had been contemplating leaving his 9-to-5 job for some time, but the added expenses of raising 2 children instead of 1 would delay his plans significantly. He saw giving 1 child up for adoption as the easiest solution. I was utterly shocked by his suggestion. We argued fiercely about it, and we didn't speak for days afterward. Finally, yesterday, I made the decision to leave him. I couldn't stay with someone willing to consider such a heartless act. When I confronted him, he insisted he didn't mean to be cruel and claimed to love both our daughters equally. He justified his behavior by expressing his desire for a better future and his disdain for his current job. Rather than lashing out, I remained composed. I proposed a compromise. I would agree to the adoption under the condition that I receive 75% of his future business income and continued support for the child until she turned 18. I assured him I'd consult a lawyer to draft the agreement promptly. If he agreed to my terms right away and contacted an adoption agency promptly without objections, I would consider staying. He was stunned by my proposal. After a moment of silence, he argued that I was being unfair and didn't comprehend the significance of his startup idea. He claimed to have friends ready to join once they had enough savings and had extensively researched investors. He begged me not to leave and to reconsider my conditions. However, I had no intention of empathizing with his situation. I refused to sacrifice either of my daughters because of his ambitions. My goal was to make him feel the same distress he had caused me. Surprisingly, my plan seemed to be working. He pleaded with me to change my mind, but I stood firm, insisting he accept my terms or face divorce proceedings. Regardless of his decision, I had already made up my mind to proceed with the divorce. I simply wanted time to find a new place to live and consult with a lawyer. Fortunately, a friend offered to let me stay with her temporarily and even offered to connect me with a divorce attorney. A few hours ago, my soon-to-be ex-husband came home from work and was genuinely surprised to see me packing. He argued that he hadn't made a decision about my conditions yet and accused me of being unfair by leaving before hearing him out. But I dismissed his protests, telling him that my conditions from yesterday were meaningless. I informed him to expect divorce papers soon and reminded him of his obligation to pay child support. He became agitated, accusing me of wasting his time and misleading him with false hope the day before. I left him to his turmoil in the living room, not in the mood to deal with his breakdown. Now, a few hours later, he sent me a message saying he had consulted a lawyer and agreed to my conditions. I was taken aback by his sudden compliance, as I hadn't anticipated him agreeing to my fake demands. However, I have no intention of entertaining his agreement, as the conditions were never genuine to begin with. Even if he agreed to give me 100% of his income, it wouldn't change my decision. It's understandable that he wants to please his parents, especially considering their conservative views on divorce. He hasn't even informed them about our impending divorce yet, as he's aware they strongly disapprove of the idea. My husband lives in a house provided by his parents, so keeping them happy is crucial for him. This might explain his desperate attempt to contact me and his suggestion that we pretend to be happily married for the sake of his parents. He even proposed splitting any inheritance between us if we maintain this facade. Reading his email made me realize how delusional he truly is. It's absurd that he could suggest pretending to be married after considering giving up one of our daughters to save money. It's sickening to think I ever believed he could be my soulmate. I'm appalled at myself for staying married to him, especially after he started distancing himself from me during my pregnancy. That should have been the end of it. I'm admittedly too much of a romantic to see things for what they truly are, and now I'm dealing with the consequences. Fortunately, my soon-to-be ex-husband's brand of insanity is more laughable than dangerous. I chose to ignore and delete his email and blocked him, but I have a feeling he'll find another way to reach me. Update. My soon-to-be ex-husband decided to pay a visit to my parents today after being served with the divorce papers 2 days ago. Needless to say, he didn't take it well. My father called me a few hours ago, reporting that my husband was at their door, shouting at the top of his lungs and demanding to know my whereabouts so he could talk to me and see his daughters. I could even hear his screams in the background, and that was the last straw. I called the police, reported him, and drove down there myself to press charges for his relentless harassment of me and my family. Despite his attempts to reason with me when I arrived with the police, I stood firm. Involving my parents crossed a line, and I couldn't let it slide any longer just because it was inconvenient. He was arrested and taken away when he realized I was serious and unwilling to speak to him anymore. He resorted to hurling every derogatory name in the book at me, as if that would faze me in the slightest. Once that ordeal was over, I returned to my friend's house. Later, my parents offered to drop me off because they wanted to see their granddaughters. I hadn't taken them to visit my parents for a while because I always feared my husband might do exactly what he did today. I didn't want to risk being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It dawned on me how much anxiety I had been living with, constantly worrying about my husband's actions. Despite my assertion that I was stronger than him and could defend myself, his recent behavior left me feeling uneasy. I didn't want my daughters to experience any turmoil. I've realized I'm not as fearless as I thought I was, and I'm deeply concerned for the safety of my babies, even if I'm less concerned about my own well-being. After discussing it with my parents, we all agree that it's time to consider a restraining order against him. Not only will this potentially aid in the custody case and ensure child support, but it's also a necessary step for my safety. It's frustrating that it has come to this, but at least it serves a purpose. I just wish I hadn't married him in the first place. Update 5. Today I had a heated argument with my in-laws. It seems my soon-to-be ex-husband finally mustered the courage to tell them about our impending divorce and the likelihood of losing custody of our daughters. They decided to call me and vent their frustrations. Initially, they feigned sympathy, but their tone quickly changed when I refused to reconsider the divorce. They unleashed a barrage of insults, accusing me of intentionally ruining their son's life and labeling me as a gold digger. I reached my breaking point, and although I should have just ended the call, I snapped. I wouldn't have considered giving up either of my babies for anything, especially not for a business that doesn't even exist yet. I made it clear to him that the conditions were never real, so his actions today were meaningless. He responded by hurling insults at me, calling me names and threatening to ruin me for playing with his emotions. Update. Hi everyone, I want to express my gratitude for the overwhelming support and responses I've received. I've read through all the comments on my post, and I've come to the conclusion that I owe no apology to my husband. He's the one who messed up, not me. Even if I manipulated him with my conditions, he deserved it. A man willing to give up his own daughter for a business venture deserves no sympathy. Looking back, it's absurd how he prioritized a hypothetical business over his own flesh and blood. Many commenters criticized the speed at which my relationship progressed and called me naive for getting carried away. I won't deny that I might have overlooked some red flags, given my past experiences with relationships. At the beginning, my soon-to-be ex seemed like a great guy. Had I known how things would turn out, I probably wouldn't have started dating him. However, I'm grateful for my daughters. They're the silver lining in all of this. Looking back, I realize I could have handled things differently, but I don't regret my choices. Some people expressed concern about my safety, fearing my husband might become physically aggressive. While I acknowledge that possibility, I'm confident in my ability to defend myself. I'm physically larger than him and have training in kickboxing, so I'm not intimidated by him. However, the safety of my daughters is my top priority. I'm usually with them and my husband doesn't know where my friend lives, so I'm not worried about him finding us. Even if he did, my friend and I take turns watching the kids, ensuring their safety. I appreciate everyone's concern, but rest assured, we're completely safe here. Update. Today, I took the step of filing for divorce. It's been a week since I moved out, and I've blocked my husband on all fronts, so he hasn't been able to contact me. He attempted to reach out to my parents a few days ago, but they shut him down and blocked him too. Similarly, my friends have blocked him, ensuring there's no way for him to reach me. It's brought me a sense of peace and relief. I've resumed working from home, as I need to focus on earning money independently. I've realized my husband isn't reliable, so this is my best option moving forward. I'm exhausted, but I'm grateful for my friend's support. She's provided me with a place to stay and helps out with the kids whenever she's around. In fact, she's been more supportive than my soon-to-be ex-husband ever was, especially during the challenging weeks after giving birth. I've requested full custody of my daughters. Given my husband's willingness to give one of them up for adoption, I don't anticipate any obstacles in obtaining it. I believe it's evident that he's unfit to be a parent. However, since he's the one who persuaded me to have children and is their biological father, he has a responsibility to them, whether he acknowledges it or not. My lawyer has assured me that he'll be served with the divorce papers in a couple of days. I just hope he doesn't decide to contest it or engage in unnecessary actions. While he doesn't want me back, and I certainly don't want him back either, I wouldn't put it past him to contest the petition or seek joint custody of our daughters out of spite, dragging us into a costly legal battle. It's unlikely but not impossible that he'd resort to such measures just to be petty. After all, he did threaten to retaliate for my actions in a text he sent a week ago, when he realized I never intended to give up our daughters and planned to leave him regardless. Although I'm not intimidated, he is currently in a better financial position than I am. Perhaps he can afford to spend a fortune on lawyers and legal issues, but I certainly can't. I have to prioritize my own well-being and that of my daughters. While I'm grateful for my friend's hospitality for now, I know I need to find a more permanent living arrangement soon. This comes with its own set of financial obligations, adding to my concerns about how he'll respond to the divorce petition. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for an update, so my husband managed to reach out to me today, which came as a surprise. I had blocked him everywhere, or so I thought. Unfortunately, he found a way through my work email address, which I hadn't blocked. He sent a lengthy email expressing his dismay at my decision to leave him, insisting that I was making a mistake and undermining our marriage by leaving less than a year into it. He also mentioned his parents' inquiries about their granddaughters, but he had nothing to tell them, which seemed to be causing him distress. However, I found myself yelling back at them, asserting that I'm certainly not a gold digger. I have my own resources, and I refuse to stay with a man willing to sacrifice his daughter for financial gain while still relying on his parents for accommodation. I didn't hold back, labeling their son a colossal failure and outlining his despicable suggestion in detail. This seemed to silence them, as they hadn't heard the full story before. Now that they were aware his fate was in their hands, I doubted they would appreciate their son suggesting we give up one of our twins to save money, especially considering their strong stance on family values. Furthermore, they likely wouldn't approve of him suggesting we pretend to still be married to secure his inheritance. However, that's a matter for him and his parents to handle, not me. I've taken the step of filing for a restraining order, and I'm hopeful it will be granted soon. Update 6. I'm back for what might be the final time, as I'm set to return to work in a few days. It's been a couple of weeks since my last update, and I'll keep this brief. My soon-to-be ex-husband has decided not to contest the divorce or fight for custody. While I'm not sure of the details, I suspect his parents may have intervened, leaving him unable to pursue legal battles against me due to financial constraints. I'm relieved because all that remains now are the settlement negotiations, overseen by our respective lawyers. With the restraining order in place, my main focus is on securing child support. Once that's settled, I can fully devote myself to my beautiful daughters. I've moved into a studio apartment, and while I miss my friends' support, I'm managing with help from my parents when needed. I'm determined to give my children the happy and fulfilling life they deserve.